I wasn't expecting it. Hell, I didn't even know what I was expecting when my phone buzzed that day. It was a normal morning, coffee, a half-finished crossword puzzle, the usual mundane tasks of my life. But when I saw the name on the screen, everything stopped. Her name, Charlotte. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to hear from her. After 15 years, I had convinced myself that chapter of my life was sealed, locked away, and I was better off for it. I didn't need her. Not anymore. So why was she reaching out now? I almost didn't answer. But then a second text came in. And then another. We need to talk. Those words hung in the air like a strange echo. Why? Why after all these years? I couldn't make sense of it. The anger that had simmered in me for years, the frustration, the hurt, flooded back all at once. What could she possibly want now? What was there left to say? I wasn't a fool. I knew I had my own baggage, my own regrets. I had moved on, or so I told myself. Relationships came and went after Charlotte, but none of them ever felt quite right. And maybe that's what bothered me the most. Maybe I had built walls around myself so high that no one could get close. Maybe I still carried that weight, the weight of the life we almost had together, before it all fell apart. But now she was knocking on those walls, and I couldn't ignore it. I sat there staring at the message, the seconds ticking by in a strange haze. I could feel the dread building up, a knot in my stomach, but I told myself I had to know. I had to find out why she was here, why she wanted to talk after all this time. With a deep breath, I typed back, "What's this about?" The response was almost immediate. She didn't leave me hanging for long. "I need to tell you something. Something you don't know. Can we meet?" And there it was. The invitation. The same way she used to ask to meet when we were together, when everything felt like it had a purpose, like we were building something meaningful. But now, it was just a request to talk. And in those 3 words, I felt the weight of all the years between us. I didn't know what I expected. I didn't know what I was hoping for. But I agreed. We set a time and place, an old cafe we used to visit. The thought of it almost made me laugh. 15 years had passed, yet there we were, meeting again in the same spot, like we were caught in some strange loop. The memories of the place came rushing back. The quiet afternoons spent sipping coffee, talking about our dreams, about the future, about love, before everything shattered. I arrived early, pacing outside, unsure of what to do. It was ridiculous. The thought of seeing her again after so long sent my mind into a tailspin. Was I angry? Was I still bitter? Or was I just terrified of the unknown? The bell above the cafe door jingled as she walked in. She looked the same. Older. Obviously, time had done that to us all. But there was something about her eyes, the way they looked at me, that made everything come rushing back. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She stood there, looking at me, like she was trying to gauge my reaction. I was doing the same thing, trying to figure out if this was a mistake, if I should just walk away and pretend this conversation never happened. But instead, I motioned for her to sit down. She did. We exchanged the usual pleasantries, the awkward silence hanging in the air like a heavy fog. She sipped her coffee, her hands shaking ever so slightly. And then she looked up at me, her face suddenly serious. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I've been carrying this secret for years. Something I should have told you before." My heart skipped a beat. My mind began racing. What was it? What could she possibly have to say that I didn't already know? Hadn't she already taken everything from me once? I didn't speak. I just stared at her, waiting for something, anything, that would make sense of all this. "I was never completely honest with you," she continued, her voice trembling. "When we got divorced, I never told you the full story. There were things you didn't know. And I think you deserve to know the truth. All of it." My pulse quickened. I felt like I was slipping into a vortex, the ground shifting beneath my feet. What was she talking about? The truth? The full story? What could she possibly say now that would explain everything? She paused, her eyes welling up with tears. "I had an affair. With someone close to us. Someone you would never have expected." I froze. The words didn't register right away. I couldn't even process them. My mind went blank, like a sudden blackout had hit. I had always suspected something, a feeling that had gnawed at me in the back of my mind. But to hear it out loud, to hear her admit it, it was like my world had cracked wide open. The affair. The words echoed in my head, a cruel reminder of everything I had tried to forget. How long had this been going on? Who was it? How could she do this to me? She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away, not out of anger, but because I didn't know what to feel anymore. I was numb, but a storm was brewing inside me. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why now? She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was afraid. I was scared of losing you, even though I already had. I was a coward, and I thought I could bury it, but I can't anymore. I sat back, trying to breathe, trying to take in what she was saying. My mind was a maze, every twist and turn leading to a different, darker realization. She had lied to me. She had kept this secret for years, living with the weight of it, and I had been left in the dark. The silence stretched between us like an eternity. I didn't know what to say. The anger was there, but so was something else. A strange, hollow feeling, like all my emotions were trapped inside a box I couldn't open. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never wanted to, but I did. And now, I don't know how to fix it. I didn't have the answers. I didn't know how to fix it either. I stared at her, trying to make sense of the words she had just said. The silence between us felt suffocating, a thick, heavy weight I couldn't escape. She had an affair. She had betrayed me. The one thing I thought I had was shattered in an instant, and all I could do was sit there, frozen. I didn't want to hurt you, she repeated softly, her voice trembling. I thought I could live with it. I thought I could bury it and move on. But I've carried this with me for years, and I can't do it anymore. I need to tell you. I didn't know how to respond. A part of me wanted to scream, to rage at her for what she had done. Another part of me, the part that had once loved her so deeply, just wanted to understand. I didn't know which emotion to trust. It felt like everything I had once believed about us, about her, was slipping away. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her fingers twisting the napkin in front of her, and I noticed how her eyes wouldn't meet mine. Was she ashamed? Was she nervous? Or did she know that no matter what she said, it wouldn't change the fact that everything between us was broken? Who was it? I managed to ask, my voice coming out hoarse. The words felt foreign on my tongue. I had never imagined asking that question, but now I had no choice. Her lips parted, and for a brief moment, I thought she might lie, that she might try to twist the truth, but then her eyes welled up with more tears. She hesitated for a long time before finally speaking. It was Alex. From work. We became close over time, and then one thing led to another. She paused, wiping away the tear that had slipped down her cheek. It wasn't just a one-time mistake, either. It went on for months. I was so ashamed, but I couldn't stop. I felt like the floor had just dropped out beneath me. Alex. Of all people. I had known him, trusted him. How could she? How could they? The betrayal stung in a way I never thought was possible. He was my friend, my colleague. And she, the woman I had once planned my future with, had thrown it all away. I tried to breathe, to stay calm, but I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Anger, confusion, and a sense of disbelief were swirling inside me. It was one thing to be betrayed, but it was another to know that it had come from someone I had considered close, someone I had trusted. I'm so sorry, Charlotte whispered again, her voice barely audible now. I know it's not enough, but I never meant to hurt you. I was lost, and I thought. She stopped herself, her words trailing off into silence. Why didn't you tell me then? I asked, my voice trembling despite my attempts to remain composed. Why wait all this time to admit it? Her eyes filled with guilt. Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing you, but more than that, afraid of losing myself. I didn't want to face the truth, and I didn't want you to see me as the person I became. I didn't know what to say. The words wouldn't come. I just sat there, feeling like I was unraveling at the seams. 15 years of my life had been built on a foundation of lies. 15 years. And now, I had no idea what to believe. My mind was racing, spinning in circles, trying to make sense of this all. I thought I could bury it, she continued, almost as if talking to herself. I thought if I kept it hidden, it wouldn't matter. But every day, it ate away at me. And then, one day, I realized that I couldn't live with the guilt anymore. I didn't know if I could forgive her. I didn't know if I even wanted to. What had happened between us was far more than just an affair. It was a betrayal of everything I had trusted, everything I had believed in. How could I look at her the same way again? How could I ever feel like we were the same people we once were? I had to come clean, she said softly, her eyes pleading. I couldn't carry this secret anymore. I had to tell you. I owe you that much. I wanted to say something. Anything to make the hurt go away. But the words wouldn't form. The only thing I could think was, why now? Why after all these years? What was the point of dredging up this pain from the past? I don't know what to say, I finally muttered. My voice felt like it was breaking. I don't know what to do with this. Charlotte's face crumpled, and she reached across the table, but I pulled my hand back instinctively. I didn't want to be touched. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. I wanted closure. But most of all, I wanted the years she had taken from me back. I understand, she said, her voice breaking. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to understand. But I had to tell you the truth. I can't hide anymore. And I'm sorry. So sorry. The words didn't feel real. They didn't feel like they were meant for me. They felt like an apology that was too little, too late. I pushed my chair back, standing up abruptly. I couldn't sit there any longer. The air between us was thick with regret, and I felt like I was suffocating. I need some time, I said, my voice strained. I need to think. I can't do this right now. Charlotte nodded, her eyes filled with unshed tears, and I turned and walked out of the cafe, the door closing softly behind me. But as I stepped into the street, the weight of her confession hung heavy on my chest, and I knew my life was never going to be the same again. The next few days felt like a fog. Every time I tried to focus on something, Charlotte's confession came rushing back, blurring everything else out. I couldn't think, couldn't sleep, couldn't escape the weight of her words. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting across from me, her face a mixture of guilt and regret. I cheated on you, she had said. But it wasn't just the betrayal itself that haunted me. It was the fact that I had been living in the dark, believing that everything was fine, that I had a handle on the life I'd built after our divorce. Now, I didn't know what was real. The past had a way of creeping back in when you least expected it. The silence between us stretched out like a chasm I wasn't sure I could cross. It had been days since we met at the cafe, and I hadn't responded to any of her messages. What was there to say? What could she say that would change anything? Then, on the fourth day, my phone buzzed again. Charlotte. This time, she didn't send a message. Instead, it was a voicemail. I hesitated before I pressed play, but curiosity won over. Her voice crackled through the speaker, shaky and unsure. I don't expect you to call back. I don't even know if you want to hear this, but I need you to know something. Something I didn't tell you before. Please, just listen. I didn't know why I pressed play, but I was already invested. She stopped, as if she was bracing herself for something difficult. There's more to the story. I didn't tell you everything. The affair, it wasn't just about Alex. It wasn't just physical. We were planning something. Something I should have never been a part of. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. What was she talking about? Planning what? My mind raced as I replayed the voicemail over and over again. What could be worse than what she had already told me? I need to explain, she continued, her voice almost a whisper. But I can't do it over the phone. I need to see you again. I sat there in my kitchen, the phone pressed to my ear, the air suddenly thick with tension. What more was there to say? What more was there to reveal? Had everything I thought I knew about our marriage been a lie? I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. But the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. Something about her words, we were planning something, kept echoing in my mind. What could it be? What had she been planning behind my back? And why was she telling me now? I couldn't shake the thought. I had to know. So, against my better judgment, I texted her back. Where and when? Her reply was swift. Tomorrow. Same cafe. Noon. And just like that, I found myself on my way back to that same cafe, the place where everything had started to unravel. My heart was pounding in my chest. What more could she possibly have to say? What secret could she be keeping that was so important, so dark, that it had taken her years to admit? When I arrived, the cafe was quieter than I remembered. The familiar hum of conversation and clinking of cups was absent, and the place felt more like a waiting room than a place for coffee. I spotted her at the same table we had sat at before, her eyes downcast, her hands clasped tightly together. She looked nervous, almost like she was waiting for judgment. I walked over, took a deep breath, and sat down. I didn't think you'd come, she said softly, not meeting my eyes. I almost didn't, I replied. But you said there was more. What could possibly be worse than what you already told me? She looked up at me then, her eyes filled with a depth of regret that almost broke me. You won't believe this, she whispered, but I need you to understand. It wasn't just about me or Alex. It was bigger than that. Much bigger. I leaned in, my heart thudding in my chest. I needed to know. I had to know what had happened. She took a deep breath, her voice steadying slightly as she began. Alex and I weren't just sleeping together. We were both part of something bigger, something dangerous, a plot that I should have never gotten involved in. My mind was reeling. A plot? What on earth was she talking about? A plot to do what? I couldn't stop myself from asking. What do you mean? What plot? Charlotte's face was pale, her hands trembling as she clasped them together on the table. She looked like she was seconds away from breaking down, but she pressed on, as if the truth had to come out, no matter the cost. It wasn't just an affair, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex and I were involved in something dangerous. I shouldn't have let it go as far as I did, but I got in too deep. I felt the blood drain from my face. Dangerous? What was she talking about? The affair was one thing, but this? This was something entirely different. I leaned forward, trying to steady my racing heart. What kind of danger? What are you talking about? Charlotte's eyes flickered around the room, like she was afraid someone might overhear, and then she lowered her voice even further. Alex. He was mixed up in something illegal. I didn't know at first, but he pulled me in. He convinced me it was just a way to make money, but it was bigger than that. Much bigger. And I didn't know how to get out. The words hung in the air, and I was struggling to process them. Illegal? What could Alex, of all people, be involved in that was so dangerous? And why hadn't she told me before? Illegal? What kind of illegal? I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. Charlotte swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to the table. It wasn't just money. It was information. Alex was involved with people who had access to sensitive things, and I was helping him, without even realizing it at first. My stomach twisted in knots. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. She was talking about something dark, something that didn't belong in the life I thought we had. Sensitive things? What do you mean? I asked, my voice a mixture of disbelief and growing fear. Charlotte took another deep breath, the weight of the confession bearing down on her. It was corporate espionage, she said, her voice trembling. Alex was gathering confidential data, hacking into systems. And I didn't know. At least, I didn't know the full extent of it. I was just a pawn, helping him with small things, like copying documents or making sure things didn't get traced back to him. But then it all escalated, and I was in over my head. I sat back in my chair, completely stunned. This was not the kind of thing I ever expected to hear from her. The woman I once trusted, the woman I thought I knew, was involved in something criminal, something that could ruin lives. So you helped him? You were complicit in this? I asked, trying to wrap my mind around what she was telling me. Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded slowly. I didn't realize what was happening at first, but I should have known. I should have stopped it. I should have told you, but I was scared. I didn't want to lose you, and I didn't want to be in danger. My mind was spinning, trying to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what she was saying. An affair was one thing, but this was a whole other level. Corporate espionage? Hacking? Illegal dealings with people I couldn't even begin to understand? Why tell me this now? I finally asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Why after all these years? Why now, when it's too late to change anything? Charlotte looked at me, her face full of anguish. Because I can't carry this anymore. I didn't want to drag you into it, but you deserve to know the truth. And I think someone is looking for me. Looking for us. Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. Looking for us? What do you mean? Charlotte's gaze flickered nervously to the door, as if she were afraid someone was listening. They know what I did. They know about Alex and me. And I think they're coming after me, after both of us. My pulse quickened. What was she saying? Who was she afraid of? What had she gotten us into? I was no longer just confused. I was scared. Really scared. I leaned in, my heart hammering. Who's coming after you? Who's involved in this? Charlotte's eyes flickered around the cafe again, as if the walls were closing in. She took a deep breath and then leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know exactly, but I've been getting messages. Strange ones. Vague threats. The people Alex was working with, they're dangerous. And I'm scared, okay? I'm scared they're going to come after me, after us. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was no longer just about an affair. This was real. This was serious. I tried to process the information, but my brain couldn't keep up. The woman sitting in front of me wasn't just a cheater anymore. She was a woman in trouble. Deep, dangerous trouble. What kind of messages? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Charlotte hesitated, clearly struggling with whether she should share more. But then, she pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and showed me a string of texts. They were chilling. You're not safe anymore. You should have walked away when you had the chance. We know what you did. It's not over. You're a liability. Get ready. I felt my stomach drop. These weren't just empty threats. Someone knew. Someone had been watching her, and now they were coming for her. Coming for us. Did you report this? I asked, barely believing my own words. But I knew the answer before she spoke. I couldn't, she whispered. I couldn't risk it. If I went to the police, it would only make things worse. They'd know I was involved, and I'd be in more danger. I didn't know what to do. I still don't. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. I was in over my head. This was beyond anything I ever thought I'd be dragged into. Charlotte was right about one thing. I didn't want to be involved. But I was already in, whether I liked it or not. I tried to breathe, trying to steady my nerves, but the weight of the situation felt like a ton pressing down on my chest. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice strained. Charlotte looked at me, her eyes full of fear and something else, desperation. I need help. I need to get out of this. But I can't do it alone. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. She was asking for my help. The same woman who had betrayed me, who had lied to me for years, was now asking me to save her from a mess she had created. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to get up and never look back. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew that if I didn't help her, if I didn't do something, I'd never forgive myself. I took a deep breath, trying to push my anger aside. What exactly do you want me to do? I asked, my voice thick with tension. She reached out, her hand shaking. I need you to help me find Alex. I need to know where he is. I need to talk to him. I stared at her, disbelief creeping into my bones. You want me to help you find the man who betrayed me? The man who put you in this mess? Why would I do that? Her face crumpled. I don't have a choice. I have nowhere else to turn. You're the only one I can trust now. I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. But I also knew I couldn't walk away without knowing what was really going on. Fine, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But this doesn't mean I'm forgiving you. I need to know everything. Everything, Charlotte. And I mean everything. She nodded quickly, relief flooding her face. I swear, I'll tell you everything. I'll make it right. Just please help me. I didn't know if I was making a mistake. But I also knew that the road ahead of me was dark, and once I stepped onto it, there was no turning back. We left the cafe in silence, the weight of what Charlotte had said hanging between us like a thick fog. My mind was reeling, and yet, something inside me told me I had no choice but to go along with this. If I didn't help her, I'd always wonder what would have happened, and the last thing I wanted was to live with that kind of regret. Where do we start? I asked as we got into my car. Charlotte seemed exhausted, her eyes dark with worry, but she didn't hesitate. I know where Alex went last, she said, her voice low, almost like she was afraid to say it out loud. He was staying with a friend in a part of the city I never liked. It's not a good area, but I can't think of anywhere else he'd go. I nodded, trying to push aside the creeping sense of dread. The last thing I wanted was to walk into a dangerous situation, but it was clear Charlotte was in over her head. She needed answers, and so did I. The drive was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts. I could feel the tension building between us. I wasn't sure if it was because of the past or because of what we were about to face. Either way, I had to push it out of my mind. There was no room for emotions now. This was about survival. When we pulled up to the address Charlotte had given me, I was surprised by how rundown the area looked. Graffiti-covered buildings, broken windows, and the air had a thick, almost oppressive quality to it. It felt like stepping into a different world, one that had no place for us. Charlotte hesitated, looking at the building in front of us. This is it, she said, barely above a whisper. But we have to be careful. I don't know who's watching. I don't know who's involved anymore. I could see the fear in her eyes. She was right. This wasn't just about Alex anymore. This was about something much bigger, something that had pulled both of us into its web. Let's get this over with, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. I opened the car door and stepped out, my senses on high alert. Every little sound seemed amplified in the silence of the street. Charlotte followed closely behind me, her footsteps hesitant. She led the way, but I could tell she wasn't sure what to expect either. As we approached the door of the building, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My heart pounded in my chest, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, but I didn't see anything unusual. When we reached the door, Charlotte knocked twice. Quick, firm knocks. There was a long pause before the door creaked open, revealing a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, with a hard face, and his eyes quickly darted from Charlotte to me, sizing me up. "You look like you've got a lot of questions," the man said, his voice gruff. "You better come in." Without waiting for a response, he stepped back, letting us inside. I didn't have a choice but to follow. As I crossed the threshold, the air inside was thick, stale, with an unsettling stillness that made my skin crawl. Charlotte didn't seem surprised, but I could see her hands trembling as she walked beside me. The man closed the door behind us and led us down a narrow hallway. It smelled like old wood and dust, and the walls were bare except for a few flickering light bulbs overhead. "You've got questions. I've got answers," the man said, his voice low as we reached a small, dimly lit room. There was no turning back now. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. The air was thick with the smell of cigarette smoke and something else, something metallic. My mind raced as I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the space. The walls were bare, except for a few peeling posters and a dusty table piled high with papers. It looked like a place where secrets were kept, where things didn't belong. Charlotte stepped in first, her eyes quickly scanning the room before settling on the man who had let us in. He didn't offer a handshake or even a polite greeting. He simply stood there, arms crossed, waiting for us to speak. I could feel the tension in the air, thick, almost suffocating. Every instinct told me to leave, to walk out before it was too late, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything Charlotte had said, after everything that had already happened. The man finally spoke, breaking the silence. "Alex isn't here," he said bluntly, his voice sharp and cold. "But I know what you're looking for." Charlotte's shoulders slumped, but she didn't back away. She kept her voice steady, though I could see the fear in her eyes. "You know where he is?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The man nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving ours. "I know exactly where he is, but it's not safe to go after him. Not now." I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Why? What's going on? What aren't you telling us?" He took a step closer, his gaze turning calculating. "You don't understand. Alex isn't just some guy caught up in a bad situation. He's deep in something much bigger. And if you go looking for him now, you'll be dragging yourself into a war you don't want to be part of." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "A war? What kind of war are we talking about?" The man looked at me, his eyes narrowing, as if he was deciding whether or not to trust us with the next piece of the puzzle. Finally, he spoke again, his voice low and almost a whisper. "Alex is working for someone. Someone who doesn't just deal with petty crimes. This is bigger than hacking or stealing information. These people are connected to things that could bring down corporations, governments. They have their fingers in everything. And they're not afraid to destroy anyone who gets in their way." My mind was spinning. This was no longer just about an affair. It was about something far darker, far more dangerous. The world I thought I knew, the world of mundane office work, weekends with friends, and casual moments with Charlotte, was gone. It felt like I had fallen into a rabbit hole, and I didn't know how deep it went. I turned to Charlotte, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Why keep this secret? If you had told me everything from the start, maybe we could have stopped it. Maybe we could have." "Stop it," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "You think I didn't try? I was just trying to survive. I didn't know how deep this went until it was too late. And now I don't know what to do. I don't know who to trust." The man shifted his weight, eyeing both of us carefully. "That's the problem, isn't it? Trust. You can't trust anyone here. Not me, not Alex, and certainly not the people he's working for. If you want to survive, you'll need to stay out of it. Let it go, while you still can." I could feel my pulse quicken. It was clear that things had spiraled out of control long before I ever walked into this mess. And now, I was tangled up in it too, dragged into something much bigger than I ever imagined. But Charlotte, she wasn't ready to let go. Her eyes locked on the man, desperation written all over her face. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice growing louder. "I need to know. I can't just walk away. I have to finish this. I can't keep running from the truth." The man sighed, stepping back. You really don't get it, do you? He shook his head, as if disappointed. There's no finishing this. There's no walking away. Once you're in for good. And if you keep pushing, you'll be digging your own grave. I'm trying to warn you. You won't survive this. But Charlotte didn't listen. Neither did I. I don't care, she said, her voice breaking. I'm not going to run anymore. I need to find Alex. I need to make this right. I opened my mouth to argue, to stop her, but the words stuck in my throat. I knew she was right. She couldn't walk away. Not after everything. And somehow neither could I. The man watched us for a long moment, as if weighing our resolve. His eyes flickered between me and Charlotte, a look of cautious respect creeping into his gaze. Finally, he spoke. All right, he said, his voice softer now. I'll help you. But you need to understand one thing. You won't be doing this alone. There's no going back. And once we go after Alex, it's all or nothing. You're stepping into a world where loyalty is everything and trust is fragile. Charlotte didn't hesitate. I'm ready. I've already lost so much, my dignity, my peace. I can't keep living with this. I need to fix it. For myself, and for the both of us. I looked at her then, a sense of clarity finally settling over me. Despite the chaos and the lies, despite the shattered trust, I realized something. This wasn't just about finding Alex or surviving this twisted web. It was about us, about reclaiming what was ours, our agency, our future. Together. I nodded slowly. I'm with you. Let's end this. Together. The man gave us a sharp nod, and for the first time, I felt a sliver of hope. It wasn't over yet, but there was a way forward. He pulled out a small, encrypted device and handed it to Charlotte. This will help you track Alex, he said. It's the best I can do. But from here on, you're in it for the long haul. You'll need to be smart and careful. Trust no one except each other. We didn't waste time. With the device in hand, we left the building and drove in silence, the weight of our decision hanging heavy, but somehow lighter than before. For the first time in days, I felt like we were finally taking control. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. As we reached the outskirts of the city, the device buzzed, its screen flashing an address. It was a place I didn't recognize, a warehouse near the docks. Charlotte's eyes met mine, her expression resolute. Let's do this, she said. We arrived just as the sun was beginning to set, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. The world felt strangely peaceful, as if nature itself was offering a moment of respite before the storm. But I knew, deep down, that this was the moment of truth. We walked towards the warehouse, each step heavy with purpose. Inside, the air smelled of salt and steel, and the shadows seemed to grow longer with each passing minute. Then, there he was, Alex. He stood by the door, looking both surprised and relieved when he saw Charlotte. For a brief moment, everything felt suspended, as if time had stopped. Charlotte, I knew you'd come, Alex said, his voice heavy with regret. I had no choice, she replied, her voice steady but firm. We need to talk. About everything. What followed wasn't what I expected. Alex, despite his involvement in all of this, wasn't the villain I had imagined. He confessed everything. The deals, the lies, and the people he had been trying to escape from. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. And in that moment, I realized that while the situation was far from perfect, we were finally putting the pieces back together. In the days that followed, the authorities were contacted, and the truth came to light. The people behind Alex's operation were taken down, and for the first time, Charlotte and I began to heal, not just from the affair, but from everything that had shattered our lives. Months later, I stood beside her, watching the sunset from the same cafe where it all began. The past still haunted us, but it no longer controlled us. We had rebuilt something from the wreckage, stronger and more resilient than before. We made it, Charlotte said softly, her hand in mine. And in that moment, I knew we had. Against all odds, we had found our way back, not just to each other, but to a future that was ours to shape. Together. The end.